All right, when you lose your temper, you lose. And if you lose your temper consistently, you're a loser. You're going to end up in jail, you're going to end up unemployed, you're going to end up divorced, you're going to end up kicked out of school, you're going to be having migraines, strokes, heart attacks, ulcers, and all manner of other problems. So, anger is not a sin in and of itself, it's what you do with it. Now I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this video talking about some of the secular approaches to anger. My reason for this is that anger management has become big business in our culture, and my guess is some of you guys watching me have probably already been exposed to some of it and maybe have a history or some experience with it. First of all, I want to explain a very wimpy, stupid explanation / solution for anger. This philosophy was espoused a few years back by a guy that touted himself as a big scholar and a big expert on boys and on males, and had done all kinds of extensive research, and it turned out that the guy's research was pretty flimsy. But his explanation of all of the male anger in our culture was as follows. He said that boys are weaned away too early from their moms, and that they don't get to bond with their moms, and what happens to them is they, at age 5 or age 4 or age 3, they're taken to preschool, they're taken away from mommy's apron strings, or they're put in kindergarten at age 5, and they don't get to develop in that particular stage, and so developmentally they're stunted or they miss out on something, and it's very unhealthy for them emotionally, because they have to, instead of be bonded with their mothers, they get pulled away from their mommies, and they're made to grow up too quickly, and they're told to suck up, don't cry, be tough, and so they bury their pain and their fear, and it stays inside of them bottled up, and then it just builds and builds as they grow into adolescence, just like shaking up a pop bottle, and there's all this inner pressure that at some point they blow a gasket, especially in adolescence and early adulthood, because as they get older, anger is expected in our culture, and in some ways it's socially acceptable, so the proponents of this view say, because the macho stereotype says it's okay, you don't want to get mad, you want to get even. And so the solution is, okay, now let's back up a minute. The reason for all of the anger is that little boys don't get to bond with their mommies, and they get torn away, and they're told to be tough guys and not cry and all of this, and to suck up, and so they have all this buried pain and all this buried fear, and as they grow it festers and gets worse and worse and worse, and finally in adolescence and early adulthood they blow a gasket, and they get angry, and they start fighting, and they start attacking, and they go home and get guns and come back to school and shoot people, and it's all because of buried pain that they didn't get to, and buried fear because they got ripped away from mommy too early. And so the solution is a very Freudian and feministic solution that says you get in touch with the little wounded boy within. You go back and you process your feelings. You teach boys how to get in touch with their inner pain. You teach them how to process their feelings. And you basically effeminize and wimpify them. You teach them how to tap into their feminine side and become more sensitive and share their feelings and use their words. And to dredge up all of this pain and all this unresolved trauma from being torn away from mommy's apron strings too early. Well, my background and observation and experience runs totally contrary to that. I think that on the contrary, what we do is we wimpify and we effeminize little boys, and we try to get them to act like little girls in the schoolyard, in the schoolroom. And rather than having them get in touch with their inner wimp, what you really need to do is teach them to be more responsible and let them be boys. Stop telling them that maleness is not good. Little boys don't need to act like little girls. They don't need to sit in little groups and become more sensitive and share their feelings and use their words. Little boys need to be outside, roughhousing, getting dirty, climbing trees, putting worms and bugs in their pockets, ripping the legs and arms off of grasshoppers without somebody telling them that, you're going to be a little molester when you get older, and you're going to be a psychopath because you ripped the legs and... Listen, I ripped the wings and legs off so many grasshoppers when I was a kid, and I'm no worse for wear even though the grasshoppers were. I mean, the birds were going to eat them anyway. Come on. Let little boys be boys. Boys don't like to sit still. They don't like to focus their attention. They like to be up running around, roughhousing, climbing trees, getting dirty, and basically fighting with each other. Nothing wrong with that. Let them get it out of their system. Let them be boys. Don't make them a bunch of little wimpy mama's boys where they got to get in touch with their inner wimp. That doesn't work. Now listen, we have had decades of this approach, this feministic approach to raising little boys. And on every scale of measurement, things are worse than they were 30 or 40 years ago. We got more boys dropping out of school. We got more boys flunking out of school. We got more boys on drugs and alcohol. We got more boys getting girls pregnant. We got more males sitting in prisons and jails today than we've ever had. We got more divorce than we've ever had before. We have more kids abandoned by their fathers than ever more before. Listen, when I was a kid, back in the 60s and 70s, little boys were allowed to be little boys. And when they got a little bit older, shoot, there was a fight probably every day out behind the gym in my high school, and the teachers looked the other way. They didn't send them to anger management classes. They didn't even kick them out of school. But I'll tell you one thing, nobody, if you got your butt kicked, you got your butt kicked. You shook hands with the guy and you went on with life. And you know how many kids went home and got guns and came back and shot people? None. Never happened. And it wasn't that it was underreported, folks, it didn't happen. So, what's the deal with these school shooters? Is it because they have this macho stereotype? Is it because they were torn away from their mommies too early? No, you know what it is? Is they're wimps. It's because they haven't learned impulse control. Nobody's taught them how to control their impulses and their emotions. Now, I might be a preacher, but you know, I'll let you in on a little secret. A few years ago, I went back and got a master's degree in psychology and counseling, and I jumped through all the hoops to get the license, the mental health license. I read all the books. I took the classes. I observed it firsthand, and I'm telling you that this Freudian feministic approach to boys doesn't work because it's based on faulty theory. Now, I'm not going to say that all methods of anger management are ineffective, because that's not true. There are many people out there that have learned how to control their anger, and they're not Christians. And they've been able to teach others and model for others how to do it. But the anger management industry as a whole is a big business that doesn't always deliver. First of all, it's usually court ordered, you know. Most people that go for anger management are court ordered to go. It's very expensive. More people get better without anger management treatment than with. And there are two forms of anger management. First of all, there's the Freudian approach that I've already mentioned to you, which involves processing through sitting in a group and talking about your anger, or ventilation. You get some kind of a dummy and hang it up out in the garage and you beat it up and you hit it. And then there are other methods that are behavioral methods, which involve counting backward from 10, taking deep breaths, visualizing, and giving self-imposed timeouts. Now, I'm not going to say that none of these things work, because sometimes they do help to a certain extent. And I'm not telling anybody out there that if you've been court-ordered to get into this kind of treatment, that you need to quit, because you need to keep your legal obligations. But anger management is a big business that doesn't always deliver, and again, more people get better without treatment than with it.